Welcome to Viewpoint, and on to another important story of the day. Newsclick, an online digital news platform, is in the line of fire by the union government and is in news for not so great reasons. The organization, which is linked to Neville Roy Singham, an American millionaire, is accused of running Chinese propaganda in India. Not to forget that the same organization, Newsclick, was raided by the Enforcement Directorate in 2021. An investigation by none other than the New York Times has revealed that Newsclick has links to the Chinese government. Union Minister Anurag Thakur slammed the organization and called it a dangerous tool of the Communist Party of China. The government further launched a scathing attack on the Congress Party for rushing to defend the organization when the BJP had clearly revealed its pro-China tilt. Mr. Anurag Thakur said that it is natural for the Congress to defend Newsclick because national interests never matter to the Congress leadership. As expected, political fireworks, a political war of words has ensued between the BJP and Congress. But what exactly this controversy is about, and what is it that the New York Times probe has revealed so far? Now, the New York Times report reveals that the news portal and their close ties with the Chinese government. This claims to be a think tank run by this American businessman, but it has gotten its fund from abroad, and there are linkages which has been established in that detailed report by the New York Times, which tell us how the money has been flowing in from the China and from the Communist Party. The flow of funds has been traced to US millionaire Neville Roy Singham. He also has his tax filings here in India, and he's funding that news organization, Newsclick. He's also closely associated with Xi Jinping's party, and not just here in India, but across the world, even in US and in other parts of the Western world. He's known to support the far-left agenda and a propaganda that is done in the entire world with the funding from the Chinese government. Newsclick also pushed the Chinese government propaganda across the world, including India, and hence we're talking about this big story. We'll tell you more about some more breaking developments coming in, but that's our focus on Viewpoint for the second half.
Congress, China, Newsclick are part of a umbilical cord कि राहुल जी की नकली मोहब्बत की दुकान में चीनी सामान के साफ नजर आने लगा.
Rahul Gandhi, he goes abroad and says exactly the same things. Democracy is under danger, the judiciary is compromised, the EVMs are compromised, which is exactly the narrative that these platforms put out.
Some latest information that we get for you here exclusively on CNN News 18. These are top intelligence sources that tell us that this was China's bid to influence Indian media operations. Chinese Communist Party is using media as a tool to influence opinion in India. Sources indicate that Newswire, another news agency, did reportedly favorably scripted interviews of Chinese ambassador on the Galwan clashes. And after the backlash, Prasar Bharati had to review its relationship with the wire agency. China has huge investments in many applications and news aggregators with about 330 million users monthly. And the Chinese propaganda and its reach is well known and much talked about. To tell us more about this, our managing editor Anand Narasimhan is joining us live from the newsroom. Anand, tell us more.
Well, our group editor security, Manoj Gupta, getting us some very critical details, and this only says that the influence of the Chinese Communist Party led by Xi Jinping extends far beyond just Newsclick. It's China's stated policy, comprehensive national power, use anything and everything in its grasp with its wherewithal to try and extend the Chinese propaganda and the Chinese point of view, and media becomes an important wing. In the US, what has happened is a lot of these entities were then designated as foreign missions because they had stake or involvement beyond a certain level in these entities, and that's why they were designated. But in many other nations, they work on the sly. They work in such a way that the front face is not Chinese. The front face is no overt explanation or overt involvement of a Chinese entity. But at the back end, the stakes are, and the money being pumped in is from the Chinese entities who are backed by the PLA, who have their affiliations and their loyalty to the CCP eventually. And thus, thereafter, then they start dictating what the narrative should be, what the tone and tenor of the coverage should be, and what the tone and tenor or the angle of the articles that particular publication pushes out, or that news agency or platform pushes out, should be. How to interpret a certain news development from a quote-unquote Chinese angle. And for time and again, there are multiple examples that have come to the fore with the way platforms like Newsclick presented stories which represented Chinese interests or the Chinese narrative vis-a-vis the Indian interest or India's interest. Now it extends way beyond Newsclick. What we are given to understand is that this goes even into apps and aggregators, to the extent that there are platforms which have more than 330 million users in India, aggregators who wanted to have a pan-India presence, and what they are doing is they are steering clear of national media largely, or national platforms largely, and then focusing on regional media, and where vulnerable regions, especially the coastal regions and the border regions, so languages like Marathi, languages like Telugu, languages like Punjabi, Urdu, even in Assamese, and some other languages, Tamil. Very importantly, interestingly, there are examples which have been cited which very clearly show that these parties were using the media as a tool. The other thing that they were also doing is that the media was used to influence opinion in India. And like I was telling you, imagine a Chinese radio is being translated into Tamil and being broadcast in Tamil Nadu.
Yes.
Clearly far left ideology. And in this case, the journalist was held for spying in China, spying for China in India on Indian soil, and that's when this entire matter came to the fore. Agencies found and arrested this journalist because he had clear CCP links and he was writing things from a CCP narrative. Newswire wrote the favorable script on China, and that's why there was action that was taken. Newswire wrote favorable script and also received a lot of backlash. The government also received a lot of backlash because of this. The other aspect, CCP's very clearly using media as a tool. Like I said, there are multiple instances. There were apps and aggregators who were banned. Action was taken, but there are still those who are still operating, even from Hong Kong-based app which had CCP money, more than 100 million users in India. So serious trouble which has now been flagged off, and clearly the extent of the Chinese propaganda is far greater than one can actually envisage.
Absolutely. Well, we must talk about the freedom of press, but in this case, we must also take note that the propaganda is very real. And the threat, the national security threat from the Chinese propaganda is very, very real. They are using both extrovert and, introvert ways of seeking their narrative and seeping their narrative here in India and in different parts of the world. Let me take this discussion to our guest as well, who are joining us on the broadcast, Mr. R.P. Singh from the BJP. He continues to be with us on the show. Krishna Teja from the Congress Party is with us. Pathikrit Payne, who is a foreign and security expert, is with us on the broadcast as well. Pathikrit, coming to you first. It's the New York Times investigation. I've gone through that piece. It's a lengthy article. In that article, India forms a very small part of it. But if you read that overall article, it clearly establishes how money and that nexus has been seeping into many countries, running the propaganda for the Communist Party of China.
Good evening. Well, this is influence operation, and this is part of the hybrid war where information, misinformation, disinformation all play a critical role. So whenever we talk about warfare for countries like China, even for the West, it is not just about conventional warfare. It is about amplifying fault lines within the societies. It is about making sure that in the name of liberty, you strengthen, extremist viewpoints, and then you create chaos within the society, and then weaken the society to that extent that you can control that, society or the country from inside. So if you look at what the Chinese have been doing, they have been doing salami slicing, they have been using death trap diplomacy, they have utter disregard for rule of law. And when they do this salami slicing, then they go and say, okay, let's keep aside everything else. Let's improve relation in other aspects. That's how they mold. And you would have a plethora of these websites, news portals who would come and say that how good it is to have a part of the Road Initiative, how good it is to improve relation with China. Look at this particular website we are talking about and the number of articles against Rafale that came out in 2018 and 19. And let me tell you, the country which actually would have benefited the most if the Rafale deal had been shelved was China, because Rafale has cold start capability, but I don't want to get into the technicalities. There are 5 things that China does. Number 1 is basically today they dominate the IT and the network system and telecommunication under an H6 program through which they created their major multinational companies which are very big in the area of telecommunication. Through backdoor, they get access to your information. Number 2, they actually fund many of these portals who are struggling for money, and then they mold it. Number 3, for a long period of time, they are targeting unsuspecting, struggling journalists, and then asking them that you can write for us, we will give you a paid visit to China. This is how they have been influencing. Number 4, funding the NGOs. So it is an entire plethora of things. In the New York Times article, it is not because of New York Times we are saying even New York Times says that this is what the Chinese are doing.
Yeah,
so it is something they have done.
No, but Patikri, the reason we are having this discussion today is because when this particular news portal was raided by the Indian agencies, the debate that ensued in the national media and from the opposition parties was as if this was an attack on the free press. While that argument should always be looked at with all objectivity and an open mind, the report of the New York Times reveals that the Chinese propaganda is very real and the organization has been under scanner for the right reasons. Mr. Krishna Teja, in hindsight, was the Congress party wrong in defending this particular organization?
Yeah, first of all, welcome to all the panelists. I want to very categorically state only for 3 things first, because this is actually a very sensitive issue. First, the Observer Research Foundation, okay, which is being run by Mr. Jayashankar's son. It has received funds worth 3 crores 51 lakhs till date. Why is the Prime Minister silent on it? The second point is Vivekananda International Foundation. Okay, 12 Chinese institutes have funded it as per Siyasat Daily in 2020. We had an article over there. Why is the Prime Minister silent, and why aren't they under any radar? And third point, why is PM Care fund not being made public? Because Hawaii has given 7 crores as per an article. Then the company TikTok has given 30 crore. Paytm has 38% of Chinese, which has 38% of Chinese ownership, has given 100 crore. And Xiaomi, I can state like this.
No, but you haven't answered my question. While you might be, I don't want to get into the merit of the arguments that you've made so far. They might be right in their paucity. It is open to debate. I don't know about them because that's not what I'm discussing today. The reason we have particularly picked up this particular news organization is because it directly involves a threat to the national security. This is the Chinese Communist Party trying to run an agenda and a propaganda here in India, which is directly detrimental to the safety and security of this nation. And isn't the Congress party one of the parties which has made a huge hue and cry, and rightly so, about what happened in Galwan and what is happening along the LAC? So how can we in any manner entertain the Chinese propaganda? Mr. Krishna Teja, that was my question. If you can answer that.
Yes, definitely I can answer you, because the institution is under ED scanner and the IT scanner. If there is any fraud, and as per, even if there is a derogation of fundamental principles that freedom of press, there is every right of the government to take action. And the Congress party stand is also clear: the country first. Okay, the interest next. Any organization which comes and does business in India should be as per the laws of India. This is Congress party stance. And let me come onto the second question. When you asked me about the line of actual control, why is the Prime Minister silent from September 2020 till date on not coming to discussion on line of actual control?
Krishnaji, you've not answered my question. The Congress party supported this organization when there were raids that happened by the Enforcement Directorate. Should you have supported this organization?
Yeah, I'm coming to the same point. The Congress party at that particular point of time has said very categorically, if there is any fraud involved, you definitely sue them and take them into account and just make them public.
But Krishnaji, what was the basis for the Congress party to support them in any way and form when the raids had happened? Did you jump the gun? Is that what the party thinks in hindsight?
See, when some rumors and speculations come on me, definitely it's my basic moral responsibility to answer you. Okay, the same thing Congress party. When Congress is being showcased or Congress is being defined in a negative limelight from one section of the media, it is a moral responsibility as an organization as such to definitely defend it and definitely show the country what exactly is the truth.
I'm
This is
sorry,
what the
but
Congress has
but
done.
with all humility, your answer doesn't appeal to my reason, because I asked you a very straightforward and simple question. Many times by the Congress party and the opposition parties, the criticism of the present Modi government in the international media is being cited as the reportage of true facts and figures. Now, when those same organizations are criticizing organizations or media institutes like these for peddling propaganda, shouldn't you think in hindsight that you jumped the gun and supported the wrong person or an organization?
Madam, one thing, we didn't support anyone. We always demanded an objective and a transparent inquiry. This is my straight answer to you. Okay, never we support any institutions, because for our party and our organization, India first, all next. Okay, because the
All
truth should be in the public domain.
I have to
This
bring
is my
another
straight answer to
guest
you.
also into the discussion. Mr. R.P. Singh has been listening to us patiently. Mr. Singh, this is just one organization we're talking about. As my colleague was also reporting, and we ran those inputs that came from our editor Manoj Gupta. The nexus is huge, and there are millions of dollars which are being fueled in. What is the government doing about it? And we need to have some kind of safety and security mechanism, because this piecemeal approach of going after one particular organization doesn't serve the purpose. Mr. Singh.
Well, when government take actions, there are pseudo-liberals and liberals who come in support of all such nefarious organizations. Newsclick is one, there are many more, but all of them come and stand with them. Whether it's Editor Guild or even to the extent the High Court also, the judiciary also comes and stand with them that, oh, on the name of the freedom of press, why shall you touch them also, or why ED should raid them. I remember High Court gave a bail to the man who was involved in the whole of the scam. And then money involved is huge, humongous. I mean, it's, as per the knowledge till now, is almost 38 crore rupees. It can be much more than this also. And then it's a big web of network which is working on it. It's not only from one source which has been funded by China. There are many sources which are funded and then further released to...
No, sir, I already expressed, and I think my line of questioning would have revealed so far my position on this issue. My question to you, as the representative of the ruling party at the union level, is, should we have some kind of special laws to deal with this? Because a lot of applications, news and online content is coming up, and there is a very thin line between free speech and curbing false propaganda like certain news outlets are doing these days.
Well, I think government should consider this. It's not a bad idea to consider that on name of free speech, you can misuse your objective of free speech for doing anti-national activities.
Okay.
That's very much there. And then let me give just recently when government took action against the income tax, not the government, income tax took action against BBC. There's so much of hue and cry. Later on, BBC accepted that they owe 40 crore rupees out to the income tax. So it is. The narrative has been set, and then when you touch them, they all pounce on you, and then.
Patikrit, I want to come to you and take in a view from you. You know, when it comes to issues like this, and being a journalist myself, I believe free speech must be guarded in any country. That being said, you cannot in any way look down upon or downplay the fact that propaganda and the kind of money which is flowing, especially the Chinese propaganda, is huge. It is so systematic and organized that the methods which must be used to curb it have to be systematic, strategic and organized. What are we missing here in India?
Well, first of all, with all due respect, as a country, we haven't taken information warfare as seriously as we should have taken.
Yeah.
We have been able to counter, we are prepared for a conventional war.
Yeah.
We know how to counter terrorism, but we still don't know how to counter disinformation warfare. Secondly, you need an architecture to take the disinformation into the other countries as well. Why is it that we are all at the receiving end? That's number one. Secondly, this issue is not a regulatory issue. This is a national security issue.
Right.
Therefore, in the digital environment, you need strong regulatory laws. For example, let me tell you, the Confucius Institutes of China, controlled by CCP, in the name of spreading Chinese culture and Chinese language, have been propagating, Chinese communist philosophy. There are major newspapers in the country who come out with one-page advertorial endorsing and celebrating the centenary celebration of Chinese Communist Party. I mean, that's not just a commercial ad, that's something else.
Okay.
And that has to be remembered. That in this era, we still have a long way to go to understand what information.
I take that point. In our country, as Patikrit says,
on one hand,
that
from the
perhaps
West,
we have not taken the information warfare as seriously as we should have. And when it comes to talent and resources, I don't think that's a problem for a country like India. I want to cut across back to Mr. Krishna Teja. Krishna ji, I'm just going to read out certain tweets that were put out by the Congress leader. Let me read what Mr. Randeep Singh Surjewala had said earlier. And this is the word that had come out, and he has said, subjugate, suppress and stifle is the only mantra of the Modi government, as proved by the ED raids on Newsclick today. Modi government wants to tell media, particularly certain journalists, and he had put out some more words, but this was an open support by the Congress party to this particular organization, now under the scanner, and being accused of certain serious charges, not by national media, but by international media.
I see this completely as, first of all, as a statesman. Okay, the tweet actually the predominant objective of the tweet is uniformity in investigation. Okay, not confined to one particular thing. If you are targeting Newsclick, not only Newsclick, target every particular one which is against the breach of territorial integrity, and which is where the Ministry of External Affairs finds fraud everywhere. Just investigate, put them into the public domain, and just sue them, because as I'm saying, the territorial integrity.
Krishna ji, but why did the Congress party defend Newsclick? Is my question too. I'm reiterating that question.
That's what I'm saying, ma'am. When Newsclick is being linked to Congress party, and when it was saying Congress party is playing a fall with Newsclick.
No, but I read out a tweet to you, and that tweet is not about defending the Congress party. That tweet was about defending this particular organization. It is very categorical in nature. I don't think there's a doubt about that. I can read that to you again if you want.
No. I got your point. That tweet actually, because the tweet is actually, why is Congress party supporting Newsclick is a question here. One thing, when you're saying Newsclick is actually propagating Chinese Chinese sort of states politics here, and when there are rumors circulating by one section of media that the Congress is actually doing.
Well, I've heard you patiently, sir, but all I can say is that my straight question was not answered. I have last 1 minute on the show. Patikrit, a closing word from you as we look at this entire saga that has unfolded in the last, more than 1 year, ever since those raids were done by the Enforcement Directorate. What is the learning and what can we take forward?
A decade back, we were part of the fragile five economies. Today, we are among the major five. So from the West, where George Soros thinks about an anarchy in India, to the Chinese who are spreading disinformation, we have a huge challenge at hand. And I would request all political parties, it is important India takes information warfare more seriously, and political parties can have a difference with the government, but please be very sure that our respected political leaders from the opposition parties, when they go abroad, they should not end up saying that China values harmony, because China does something exactly opposite of what they claim to do, and we should not end up, for the sake of some political mileage against the government, end up endorsing what the Chinese want you to do. So we have to be very careful between the difference between freedom of expression and disinformation being propagated in the name of freedom of speech.
Free speech cannot be the blanket cover or some kind of defense against misinformation and, more importantly, propaganda that directly hurts the national interest. With that, it's a wrap. Mr. R.P. Singh, Krishna Teja and Patikrit Payne, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the broadcast. With that, it's a wrap on Viewpoint. And my colleague Shivani Gupta follows you.